Ladies and gentlemen, on 6th of February, we celebrated International Day on Zero Tolerance on FGM. And in light of that, today here at 3TTV, we want to have a candid conversation on FGM. My name is Juliet Modoni and welcome to today's episode. We are coming to you from Edgewood Country Place that is located in Maboromoko, which is off Gatanga Road. It is a nice location and a one-stop shop where you can come for a photo shoot, a video shoot, a graduation party reception, and better yet, on a Sunday, you can bring the kids and family for a family fun day. Be sure to check them out. We hope that by the end of this episode, if you haven't subscribed, we will give you a good reason to. So let's dive right into it. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you so much for finding time to come and have this very sensitive discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we go to it, there's somebody who is watching for the first time.
Yeah.
Kindly introduce yourself and let us know what it is that you do.
Okay. So my name is Jacinta Kagai. I'm a gender activist and a gender expert. And so I deal with gender issues. I advocate for gender equality, for all, both men, women, boys and girls, to ensure that everyone is treated with dignity and they have access to equal rights and everyone is safe. Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Jacinta. There's a report that was published about some gender-based violence that happened here in Thika, in Kiandutu slums. I'd like you to start by telling us what exactly is GBV.
Yeah. So it's very sad, and I saw the news about this issue. And I believe this is a timely conversation. So when we talk about gender-based violence is unintentional. It can be also intentional force towards someone because of their gender. And this force causes harm to the individual. So when you do something that causes harm to someone, and which we say it stems from the gender perspectives that people have towards each other, this is now GBV. It can happen in different forms. We have sexual violence. We have physical violence. When we talk about physical violence, this is harm that causes physical injury that you can see. When we talk about, we have economic violence, where you're withholding finances from your partner or from someone who actually needs those finances, and like in a family setting as well. There is also harmful cultural practices, and you've said yesterday was International Day for Zero Tolerance on FGM. So when we talk about FGM, things like beading, things like wife inheritance, this is GBV, So it can happen in different forms, but we say that this thing actually stems from gender perspectives, what people view to be gender, and also this is also about power and control. So you have someone there and they have power over you and they want now to control you in a different way. So that is what GBV is.
Wow, thank you. That's quite insightful. Economic violence right there.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about GBV, we mostly talk about women.
Yeah.
But we saw that the boy child is also affected. Can you kindly enlighten us a bit on that?
Yes. So GBV can happen to anyone and everyone.
Okay.
And we'll find that most women have gone through gender-based violence. So we say that research has proven that women are the most, we call them survivors of gender-based violence. But then in the same case, there are also boys and men who go through gender-based violence. But sometimes this does not come into light because most men wouldn't or don't report.
Sure, actually.
And it stems from, the stigma that the society would have. How many men or even people would believe that I was beaten as a man, you were beaten by your wife.
You'll even be ridiculed.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're holding about how we socialize our boys to be strong, so they don't speak about it. But yes, a man can be violated, a boy can be violated. But yes, most of the cases and research has proven that girls and women are the most survivors of violence. But then again, it has also proven that men and boys are the most perpetrators of violence. But then we have now these cases where there is violence towards the men, there is violence towards the girls as well, there is violence towards the boys. So you'll find in situations where some people take advantage of young boys. You know, when we started, we said GBV is about power and control. So you'll see a house help who's been left with a boy, and they start touching the boy indecently, or the sexual violence that comes with it. And then you'll also find in some situations where you have older men now taking advantage of little boys. And that is why we're talking about that case that was in Kiandutu, which is, people call it lamely sodomy, but according to the law, that is defilement. So yes, men and boys can be sometimes they're perpetrators, but then again they can also be survivors of gender-based violence as well. Yeah.
Now you've brought in a very good twist about a young boy who is left with a house girl and is defiled. How then can you identify that your son or your daughter, in this case we are talking about minors, because in Kiandutu there were boys who are as young as 4 years old who had been violated. How can you as a caregiver identify that your son or your daughter is going through some violence?
Yeah.
Yes.
So first we need to know that sexual abuse, sexual violence is a traumatic event. So this situation causes trauma to the survivor. And in this case, when it's a young boy or a young girl, we can try as parents look for these signs to just know, because sometimes these children would not report because probably, you know, a perpetrator will threaten you. You know, they will rape you and tell you, if you tell someone, I'm going to kill you, you know. So you can look out for signs, you know, probably like when in this situation in Kiandutu, these boys were playing outside. So you would notice probably if your child is very outgoing, they go outside and play, they no longer want to go to a certain area, you know. They don't play freely with people. If it's a child, now they're very reserved, they don't talk, you'll notice they have a lot of anxiety, they are fearful, probably they'd meet, if the violation was from a man, when they see probably a man, they run away, they hold you so tight, you know. And if it's like a mother situation in a house help, you'd notice that when you go home, this child runs to you and holds you very tight. You know, they don't want anything to do with the house help. So these are signs we should look at to identify, really, is my child safe at home and outside? It might not even be that violation, but probably they're physically abused. Maybe that there's so many issues. So this is a traumatic event, and we need to look into these signs where the child now does not talk, cannot express themselves well. If it's about at school, they're not performing very well because probably a teacher or someone is violating them. Yeah, so I think these are the signs that we should look for.
Okay. Now, with the advent of COVID, GBV cases have been on the rise, actually.
Yeah.
We have even seen it in the news. It's reported more often than not. From where you sit as an expert, can you enlighten us more about that?
Yeah, with the pandemic, with the onset of the pandemic, as you said, GBV cases was on the rise. And that is, I would say that is obvious when you find in situations of emergencies, you know, when there are floods and families have to sleep outside, when there are cases like hunger and all, GBV actually does rise. Because in situations like this, you'll find that children were away from school, right? So they are away from the safe space they had in school. So these children end up being closer to their perpetrators. And according to research, actually, most perpetrators are well known to the survivors.
It's so unfortunate.
Can you imagine? Most perpetrators are actually neighbors, fathers, relatives, uncles, you know, so they're known to these people. So when there was these measures to contain the pandemic, so children were away from the safe space you would call a school, so they were more close to their perpetrators. As well, you'll find that there was a lot of economic instability.
Sure.
You know, this would cause so many wrangles at home, domestic violence. We've had cases every now and then in the TV. People are killing each other, husband and wife. Someone killed themselves.
Yes.
You know, so it's the atmosphere that the pandemic brought that actually necessitated, or I would say, perpetuated violence more in the society. Yeah.
Now, what does that say? What does that say about us as a society? Does it mean that we are not able to read these things that are happening? Because now, since there's a pandemic, we are seeing it more often. What advice would you give us as a society generally?
And I would also want to say, I think reporting has also increased.
Okay.
So in as much as we would say, yes, the pandemic created more of these cases, also there has been an increase in reporting, although most cases go unreported. So this shows us that as a society, we need to change how we live in this society. Because as we said, I will repeat again, GBV is about power and control. So how do we socialize our boys? How do we socialize the men? You know, when people feel that they are entitled. So, and you know, GBV can also happen as sexual harassment. You know, you've seen girls walk on the road, someone is touching you, someone is catcalling you. So how can we ensure that people respect each other, you know? And how can we ensure that as a society we do not teach our boys about consent, you know? So how can we teach sex education to our schools so that boys and girls are able to know this is what sex is, this is what safe sex is, this is what consent looks like. Because when you talk about this violation, when you talk about rape, defilement, this is done out of no consent, right? And we need to know that there are 3 people who cannot give consent. A child below the age of 18 cannot consent for sex. So if someone is out there having sex with someone who is under 18, and sometimes you'll even hear of sexual relation between children below the age of 18, this is not right, you know, because we say these children have not developed, they do not have the capacity to even consent to sex. Number 2, someone who is intoxicated, go out, have fun here in Thika, club fulani pale, you know,
Yes.
drink with a girl, go with her at home, and now you want to have sex with her. She cannot consent. She's intoxicated, you know. Also, someone else who can't consent for sex is someone living with a mental illness.
Okay.
You know, the law will say people with mental disabilities, because this individual does not have the capacity to give consent. And consent here means give permission for you. What does consent look like? Consent is enthusiastic, you know.
Yes.
Consent is when someone wants you, you know. Consent has communication. You have to communicate to someone that I want to have sex with you, and they actually agree and they're enthusiastic about it, you know. So as society, we need to respect people's choices. We need, if people are having sexual relations, please do it with consent, you know. Leave children out of this. Leave your intoxicated partner out of this. Leave people with living with mental illness out of this, and let us ensure that we protect the people who need it the most. You know, people with disabilities. They are also survivors of GBV as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to live with respect. We need to end the rape culture. that exist, you know, attitudes and behaviors that continue to perpetuate violence, that normalize violence as well.
Yes.
You know, we need to call out people. It's funny that sometimes we know people who actually survivors, but no one who knows anyone who is a rapist.
Yes.
You know, can we hold each other accountable? When you're a man, you see someone catcalling, or you know someone has been raping someone, can you tell them to stop? You know, can we stop all the rape jokes, social media? You know, it's a lot, but I believe when we start raising our children well, when we start raising them to respect each other, we can have a society free from violence. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot to digest. You've brought in an interesting bit, when you are intoxicated.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to talk to the young people out there.
Yeah.
You see, I will go out with you as a lady. I will agree to go out with you. And as a man, you will take that as consent. So I'll go out with you, we'll have a few drinks, and you'll take that as consent. But we have actually not even talked about it.
Yeah.
Can you please advise the young men about that as well? Because I'm seeing them falling into the rape trap.
Yeah. Well, we need to know that, as I said, consent is open communication. Consent is a firm yes, you know, enthusiastic. It doesn't, sometimes you have to look even into the signs. So the fact that I have agreed to go out with someone at night to have a drink doesn't mean that I want to have sex with you. And the problem is that most men would have this mentality that if, or I'm taking her out, then Lord Johnny,
Lazima.
Mechi. You know?
Sure.
We need to understand that if you choose to take someone out, if you want to have sex with them, communicate with them. If they don't want to have sex with you, don't have sex with them, you know, and don't rape them, because at the end of the day, the law is very clear. If you rape someone, you'll just have to be brought to book. And it's sorry that most people do not actually get justice from this. But at the end of the day, how do you feel when how do you even go ahead and have sex with someone who is not even interested in having sex with you? I cannot even fathom. Yeah.
Now, if we don't balance this conversation, it won't make sense. We've been talking about men as perpetrators.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you have some statistics or you can tell us about women as well who are perpetrators.
Yeah. Well, there are circumstances where we have women as perpetrators. With this change in society now, you'll have like young men being used, young men from the universities being violated by, let's say, rich mamas. Okay, I won't say anti waharia, watu wote waharia wasinikujia.
Sure.
You know, but you'll have circumstances like that where actually these men are actually violated. And then, but most cases I have come across of violence against men, some will be domestic violence, and men won't speak out. Okay. Because we've seen these things. Even a politician coming to say, my wife has been beating me, and what did the society do about it? So most men would, I believe these cases are more, but men don't report because the society has taught them to be strong, like we said. The reporting also mechanisms do not favor them at the gender desks. Okay. Probably they'd go, the police will be like, unachapwa aje na mwanamke, you know. So there are cases of domestic violence between men and women as well. And then most cases also are what we are talking about defilement, where a boy is defiled by an older man as well. We have sodomy cases where we have like in the section, in the Constitution, in the Penal Code, where you have violence towards the men who are actually sodomized by older men, which at the end of the day it goes to rape as well. It goes, that is rape as well. But because of statistic, you know, the problem these days is that people want to balance conversation instead of them saying what it is.
Sure.
Exactly. Yeah, but then I'm here to tell people that yes, men can be violated. We've seen men come out. We've seen men start support groups as well. So as men, men as well should stand up to support survivors and not ridicule survivors as well. Yeah.
Now, there's probably an instance where somebody has been violated. You've gone through gender-based violence.
Yeah.
And you do not know how to go about reporting it. Can you please enlighten us in that note as well? Let's say, for example, as a parent, I have realized that this has been happening to my son or my daughter. How can I, what process is followed?
Okay.
Yes.
So when you identify or you are actually a survivor of violence, so what you do first, you need to report to the nearest police station. And some places, it's sad, I've been in the field, you find there are no police stations in this country of ours. So if you could go to a chief, you go to the police station, you'll be given a form to fill there. And then from the police station, you go to the hospital. At the police, actually, you will find a gender desk.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there are some that are actually functional, and unfortunately, some are not functional. But I believe we've actually improved in that case. So from the police station, you'll go to the hospital. Some hospitals have a GBV center. So when you go to the hospital, you'll be, you know, they'll do all the tests to just get the evidence of this, and then now which this evidence will be taken to court. Yeah, but then again, this survivor needs support. When you're not sure what to do, you can always call. There's a hotline number, the government hotline number, Healthcare Assistant Kenya. It's called, it is 1195. You can always call 1195, and this is a call hotline number, and it is free, and it is open 24 hours. So you can call it anywhere you are. They are going to direct you on where to go. They will provide psychosocial support as well. Yeah. And then so now, and there are also different organizations who are actually doing legal support. There are actually others who are also doing psychosocial support. But the most important thing is to ensure that you actually report to the police. Then you go to the hospital, so that now the test can be done and there is evidence. And make sure if it's a rape case, it doesn't go beyond 72 hours. Yes.
You said that number is 1195.
Yes, 1195.
And it works 24 hours.
Kabisa.
Even if we call it right now, it will go through.
Yeah.
Let's do it practically. And because we said that this year we are doing things practically, I'm calling 1195 so that we can see that it actually does work.
National Gender Violence Helpline 1195. Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry, good afternoon.
Yes, it's afternoon. How are you doing?
Well, whom am I speaking to?
My name is Juliet Modhoni. I'm calling you from 3T TV.
You're calling from?
3T TV that is located in Thika. We are having a conversation on GBV, and we wanted to find out whether this line actually does work, and we have found out that it does.
It does. You said your name again was?
Juliet Modhoni.
You can tell us what
Juliet Modhoni. Which TV, which radio station is this?
3T TV that is on YouTube.
3TT.
3T TV, Thika Town Today.
Oh, Thika Town Today TV.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. At least you have confirmed that the line is working.
Yes.
We deal with issues of gender-based violence. People report. They call this line. It's free, and they can report any form of gender-based violence from all over the counties in Kenya.
Okay.
So it is on 24/7. You call at night, anytime you'll get somebody on call.
Thank you so much. And who am I talking to, please?
My name is June.
June. Thank you and have a lovely day.
Have a lovely day too, Juliet.
Okay. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. 1195, and it actually does work. Thank you for enlightening us about that.
Yeah.
Now, you've been in this field for quite a while. I'm sure you have seen some success stories.
Yes.
I'd like you to share probably one so that people can see that the system actually works.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, actually there are quite many, but and of course in respect I wouldn't mention the survivor, but I followed up on a case back at home where a 9-year-old was defiled by the husband to the sister. So it's like now a sister who has a 9-year-old sister who was defiled by the husband. So we followed up that case. We were able to rescue the child. In most circumstances as well, I forgot to say this, if it's a child's case and if even in adults' cases where they are actually near the perpetrator or they would be in trouble, it's good to actually rescue them and take them to a shelter. So we took this girl to a shelter where she was safe. Then this man was arrested, went to court after a few days and was actually sentenced to life in prison. So it does actually work. I also know someone who also raped someone who has a mental illness. They were also taken and they were charged with 10 years in prison as well. We've also seen survivors. You know, at the end of the day also, this is not the end for survivors. I know there are so many people out there who feel I'm being violated, you know, or I was raped, you know, this is the end of my life. But I'm requesting the society to support survivors as well. We've been able to rescue survivors, take them to shelters. There was a lady who I actually rescued in December. She was being physically abused. She was chased away from home. Now she's in a shelter doing very well. She gave birth to her daughter, you know, and now she's actually very hopeful for life. So it's not the end. This is just a message to survivors that it is not the end, and the system actually works. Sometimes there are gaps here and there because you'll find that most of these cases are solved at home, kangaroo courts. Mtu ameshika mtoto wako, you know, you agree as a family, wewe leta 50k, you know, these cases are happening. So I'll also want the society to stop that because we are hindering justice for the survivors. And when you sit down and start talking about families or parents or how we are going to solve these, at the end of the day, you do not look at this survivor and what they need, you know. So I would tell the society to report these cases. Don't hide perpetrators. Wacha tuwajue wote. Because if a woman is not safe somewhere, no one is safe. Yeah.
Awesome. That's quite something to digest. Now, as we come to the conclusion of this discussion, I thank God at least you've put a smile on our faces. It's not all gloomy.
Yeah.
You have some advice you'd like to give people in the society concerning GBV and how to go about it? And also, I'm sure there's somebody who is watching who'd like to contact you and have a longer conversation about this. You can give out a contact through which they can reach you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, my advice would be that what I just said, let us not hide perpetrators. Let us ensure that we actually bring them to book. We want to see the systems working. We want to see the gender desks working. And for any survivor who is out there, you can always reach out to organization. You can always call 1195 if you're being violated back at home. Please call, please seek help, because sometimes we do not speak out, and I understand why we don't speak out because of all the stigma. And I want to tell the society not to condone violence, because violence is wrong. Even beyond us talking about GBV, if you're a Christian, if you are a Muslim, I don't believe there is any religion that actually support violence. So we should stop this violence. So for further engagement, you can reach me through my social media handles. Through Facebook, I'm Jacinta Kagai. You can get me in Instagram at Shiro Kagai. You can get me also on Twitter at Jacinta Kagai. Just inbox, and we're going to see how we can go about it for future engagements. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Juliet Mudhoni. You have been watching 3T TV, Thika's #1 online news channel, where we are telling the Thika story as it is. Until next time, take care.